everyone, I'm Ian.
And I'm Sam.
And you're listening to Do I Like This, the podcast.
Yay!
Woo!
We're finally back.
Sort of. This week, this episode is brought to you by the flu and dental emergencies and general...
sick toddlers. Coughing in your mouth.
So this week, Sam was really under the weather. So this week's episode is going to be featuring my brother Brett and myself discussing the 2001 movie Boa. Sam is going to quickly, though, give us her thoughts on what this movie could possibly be about, knowing nothing about it.
Yeah, so I haven't watched it. I didn't get a chance because I was wrangling a sick baby and being sick myself, among other things. So Ian and Brett are doing it by themselves. And I said, why don't I just tell you guys what I think the movie is before you go into your spiel?
I said, yes, that is a perfect idea.
All I know is that it's called Boa, so I'm assuming there's a giant snake. And Ian said Dean Cain is in it.
Yes.
So I was calling it Snakes on a Cane.
I love it.
I'm guessing that the only other disaster movie I've seen Dean Cain in is that one with the volcanoes.
Volcano plane.
I always call it volcano sharks for some reason because I just think I wish that there were sharks flying out of the volcanoes at the plane, right? Can somebody make that? Thanks,
yeah,
Asylum.
Can we get that sequel? Thank you.
So I'm guessing it's Dean Cain is a big, strong scientist, and he is working on some special project somewhere.
What do you think that special project would be? I will give you a hint. Go off the radar.
Well, I was going to say core samples from the Amazon.
Okay. We'll go with that.
Or he's up in a tree studying sugar gliders. I don't even know. Where are they from?
I want that. I hope they're from up in trees.
And they somehow accidentally release an ancient boa.
Okay.
And the boa is getting revenge on the world polluting its habitat.
I like where you're going with this.
And it starts wreaking havoc on the science place where Dean Cain is the king of the scientists.
Sure, up in the trees. Yeah.
And then he has to single-handedly fight the boa to the death. And he wins, right?
Pretty close. All right. I want to give you one lead. So his wife is also a slightly younger doctor. And they have a very asinine argument that goes on throughout the movie about their relationship. What do you think they argue repeatedly about from different points of views that causes them to butt heads?
They argue about the existence of Bigfoot, Ian, and how big his feet actually might be. And when the boa appears, she doubles down because obviously if there's a big boa, then there's a big foot, right?
100%. All right. Well, Sam, thank you for describing the movie. I don't know why Brett and I are going to even talk about this at this point, since you just took us through it right there. So, Sam, we hope you feel better next week. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
And now, with no further ado,
enjoy the party in your ears that is Ian and Brett.
Take it away, us. So welcome, Brett, to our podcast again this week. We are going to start giving you produced by credits on this at some point soon.
I mean, I'm just glad you guys are alive. It sounded pretty rough over there. Pretty rough and tumby.
It was not good. I actually added on top of that, had an emergency root canal this morning because I cracked a tooth, ignored it for 3 weeks, and then woke up on Saturday and Sunday with a drill going through my face pretty much. And Sam was like, yeah, that's why you should have done that 2 weeks ago. And she wasn't wrong.
I, too, love putting off important things. So
yeah, I think it's in our DNA. So
yeah, definitely.
I made up for that canker sore by finally sitting down and watching the 2001/2002. They can't determine what year they want to say this movie's from.
Nobody knows. It's a mystery.
Dean Cain, probably in his IMDb top 40 movie Boa.
I don't want to ruin the podcast by saying how I feel about this movie immediately, because that is supposed to be the
I think this
last
is a
minute
unique
line.
episode.
But oh man, I don't know why. I love Dean Cain. I love these movies. This is just so exactly up my alley, which is great because the last few have been pretty hit and miss.
Oh man, yeah. Although people are enjoying listening to Nightmare at Noon, so thank you to the entire country of India, which is now our top listening country. We really appreciate all your support, and we're glad you enjoy listening to us be so confused by Nightmare at Noon.
They're equally confused.
I think that's why it's probably like two people re-listening to it repeatedly, being like, "These are the feelings I have. They are now justified."
Validation, baby. It's powerful.
So we're going to get into all of Dean Cain and how we feel about this movie. But I'm going to try to do what Sam does. I'll probably do it a little bit less effectively, but I'm going to read the plot from Wikipedia, and then Brett and I we're just going to talk about this movie because Sam already nailed it in her projection of what this movie is. Obviously, we're recording this part first before that, but I know she nailed it to a T. So I don't even know why we're doing this at this point.
I'm actually going to be a little bummed if it turns out she doesn't watch this, because this is the most watchable one you've had so far.
This one was, this was a solid hour and was it like an hour 30, 35?
Hour 35, yeah.
Yeah. An hour 35 that began in the plot, and it is, in New Alcatraz, the world's most secure prison located in Antarctica, a drilling operation inadvertently releases a giant boa constrictor from a large hollow rock that has been preserving it in suspended animation. The snake chews a hole through the ice, enabling it to escape into the prison. The hole is discovered by workers, and a guard is placed on it until the engineers can assess the hole and block it up. Jenkins, the guard, hears a strange hissing noise in the tunnels and is sent by Sergeant Quinn, his supervisor, to investigate. Jenkins, unnerved, requests backup, causing Quinn to send the engineers Peloso and Goodman to help him. I will say, before I continue on, these are just mostly disposable guards at this point.
Disposable engineers as well.
Also true. Oh, that's a good point. Jenkins is stalked and killed by the snake. Arriving on scene, Peloso and Goodman grumble about being woken up. Blood drips down from the pipes onto Peloso, causing him to stare up in confusion just as the snake attacks him and Goodman. The engineer's screams can be heard as the snake begins to move further into the prison. The prison sends out a distress call, which is received by the United States military. They hire paleontologist Robert Trenton, Dean Cain, and his wife Jessica to assist a military team led by Major Larson in the search to destroy the snake. When they arrive at the prison, they discover a group of survivors led by Head of Security Quinn and Prison Warden Fred Riley. The security and military personnel split up and set out to find and kill the snake, while Robert, Jessica, and Fred watch on in the control room. A soldier named McCarthy is killed by the snake, while his partner Simmons is found shot dead. One by one, the other personnel are also killed. Robert and Jessica join in the hunt. After a skirmish with the snake, a gas pipe ruptures and explodes, killing the remaining security and military members. Robert and Jessica flee from the snake, but Jessica is seemingly killed. Robert returns to the security room and convinces Fred to release the prisoners to help in their escape. Fred releases the prisoners, and the group devises a plan to escape. During the escape, one of the prisoners, a hacker named Kelly Minich, attempts to save himself only to be killed by the snake and accidentally causing another gas explosion, killing Fred. Meanwhile, the other group, led by prisoner Yuri Breshkov and Mark Sheppard, and his cousin Peter Yuvol, who had been arrested at the beginning of the film for attempting to purchase mid-range nuclear missiles for Chechnya. He finds Jessica alive, and they take her in. The snakes then kill two of the prisoners, but Yuri and Jessica escape to the surface. Meanwhile, Robert and prisoner Patricia O'Boyle, a member of the IRA, attempt to escape, although the snake kills Patricia while Robert escapes to the surface. Robert, Jessica, and Yuri attempt to escape on a military plane, although the snake sneaks aboard, which is an inaccurate description of what it does, and kills one of the pilots. In the ensuing battle, the snake is ejected from the plane, but Yuri is dragged out with it, and the two fall to their deaths. Robert and Jessica, bewildered but alive, fly to safety. And that is Boa. See you guys next week.
Okay.
It was fun.
There's a lot of things that is a serviceable recounting of the plot. There are a lot of things that they missed out on, and a lot of things we'll definitely touch on. But just to start, Dean Cain and Mark Sheppard carry this piece. And man, I didn't know his name until now, but Mark Sheppard is like, if you're my age, you've seen him as a bit actor in so many things. Just like
He's outstanding.
he's great, but he was like the kind of guy who is, oh, I'm the bad guy on this week's episode of CSI or whatever procedural.
Firefly, he was the great
he was in
Badger
Firefly.
on Firefly.
Right now he's in Doom Patrol, which I believe is a good show that is doomed to not be watched because it's on a shitty streaming service.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah, especially because he's basically Constantine in it. And
ooh.
Yeah.
That is one of Sam's films that I haven't seen that she wants to make me see.
We'll get there. I bet.
All right. Ooh, maybe that'll be a pick we do with you then.
Like, all right, this whole movie.
I also enjoyed, before we move off the actors, I really enjoyed Quinn, the security guard. I thought he was fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a big fan of, I believe his name is Grand Bush or Grand L. Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy.
He kind of played the Samuel L. Jackson from Jurassic Park one-liners role really well in this.
There were big Deep Blue Sea vibes at certain points in this movie that I really appreciated. But like, yeah.
Did this come out before Deep Blue Sea or after? When was Deep Blue Sea?
Deep Blue Sea was 99, so this is 1 to 2 years after, or possibly 3. Who knows?
So you weren't wrong. They probably had just seen it and were like, oh, we're going to put those things in.
And I mean, he was one of the other notable characters, right? All of the soldiers were throwaways and half of the prisoners were.
Oh, absolutely.
But basically, right, so, we get this whole opening scene where the engineers are talking to the warden about drilling, right? And this scene pulled me in because I could feel that style of like late 90s, early 2000s, made for TV, live action kind of. It's sort of in the vein of like the live action Hercules and Xena shows or like Stargate. You had that feeling of like, okay, these aren't exceptional actors, but the direction is good and they have like character and some like banter to them that was really compelling.
It's absolutely logical what they're talking about. Now, it may be stupid at times, like some of the science and their approaches, but you hear these conversations and you're like, okay, I see what they're trying to do here, and it
like
functions.
The science. What do you mean, right? Because okay,
let's just get right down to the hollow rock
12,000 feet underground.
Actually, hold on. Wait. So let's just start off. We're in this super secret international prison that's being built on the South Pole. And for reasons we don't know, they're drilling 12,000 feet into the core.
Probably for the same reason that the entire prison exterior is slapped with blue LEDs and like does not feel like it's a contemporary prison. Like it feels like someone was making it. You know what it feels like? It feels like Lost Planet on the Xbox. All these establishing shots of just like exteriors with LEDs covered in snow.
Winter.
And, I know that's not the average.
We got a runway
the
here.
Average moviegoer's reference, but yeah.
It reminds me a little bit too of from that same time frame, Red Planet, where they would like show the exterior shots of like the Mars base, obviously being Mars, and you're just like, all right, someone thought this is what a base is like.
Almost made me think. Well, after this scene, I have some thoughts about how the script was composed, or how maybe there were some rewrites going on, but. They established this, new Alcatraz, super prison in the Arctic. That's the South Pole, which does matter, kind of.
I guess.
I get it back and forth. Well, it does matter because they put up timestamps at the beginning of most scenes, and if you pay attention,
they did.
Oh man, there's some shenanigans. But
yes,
12,000 feet. 12,000 feet. Under the surface is a hollow rock, and we're trying to drill through it because I guess we're trying to set up like a thermal vent or something.
Probably the best explanation. Yeah.
The nerds are like, you can't drill through it because it could be under pressure because it's hollow, right? And so if it's pressurized, bad stuff's going to happen. The warden's like, that sounds like a bunch of quitter talk.
Yeah.
Right?
They respect scientists in this movie. We bring you in for expertise and fuck your expertise.
You could tell the engineers and the like prison staff are not on the same team. Like they have had disagreements in the past. So, but Warden's in charge, says we're drilling. Let's get a drillin'.
Drill, baby, drill.
They drop the terms pure nitrogen and 5,000 psi.
They dropped the term anything that's inside it was preserved 100% how it was 10,000 years ago, which is where my brain shut off.
Because it's pure nitrogen, but it's 5,000 psi of pure nitrogen. So whatever is preserved
inside... Can you give
inside,
a reference point for those of us who aren't familiar with 5,000 psi?
Well, my tire is at like 40 psi, right? Give or take.
And if you puncture that, your car could flip over on the highway.
Yeah, I don't know how we pressurize airplanes, but this is probably a lot more intense of a pressure gradient between, like... So, we're going to...
You know what's not intense?
What's that?
When they pierce the rock and the explosion.
They pierce the rock, exactly. They're like, oh no, this 5,000 psi explosion's coming up the shaft at us.
I have a quote written down by one of the engineers going, "We got a lot of gas coming right at us."
A lot of gas. But ultimately, the room gets shaken. There's a little bit of hoo-ha, and everybody goes about their day. I was wondering if there was going to be a later on payoff between this division between the engineers and the prison staff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think there is, but they seemed like they were setting up like, wow, these guys do not like each other.
Yeah, it kind of had the like, you're on team road rules, you're on team real world, I can't like you kind of vibe. And I was like, oh, this is dumb. What wasn't dumb was their Sequest style uniforms.
Everybody looked good.
Yeah,
not gonna lie.
Good. Late 90s, early 2000s, right. Solid.
For their trips through the industrial underground, which composes about 90% of this prison, I guess.
I'm curious where they shot this film, because I want to go visit this ridiculous place.
Industrial underground. They're like just, the piped, like corridors under a parking garage or something. Like,
and then whatever room that final boa scene where Mark Sheppard and his wife are running around in are.
That's a room, but we'll get to it because more importantly, we got to meet the protagonist of the film. Not Indiana Jones. It's Dean Cain teaching at Princeton University, where he's a paleontologist.
I literally wrote, "Oh God, Dean Cain is a scientist. Move over, Dr. Jones."
It is 100% supposed to be that. So he's teaching, and he's well known for his theory on undiscovered reptiles.
I really have to say, that's a solid epitaph on your tombstone.
What's more solid is having your wife, who is also a doctorate in the same thing, sitting in on your last day of class.
Oh my God, he stacked that audience.
There's a quote about him talking about his thing, and I believe the quote is, "The scientific community tends to frown on it when the only person who will support your theories happens to be your wife."
Yeah, Dean, they do.
Okay.
What I thought was kind of funny was he's giving this whole speech about leaving to a class of students who are like, "We don't give a fuck, dude." Like, shouldn't he be doing this at like a faculty dinner or something?
Maybe they've been in, all semester. Maybe they're his favorite students. One of them, this sassy girl, goes in for a hug. And at this point, I had not actually looked at the cast breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, is this going to be second wife after the first wife gets killed by a snake?
I had that same vibe too. I'm
knows,
like, oh,
right?
They're setting up tension with the wife. What we didn't realize is that's not the tension. The tension is he wants her to have a baby, and she doesn't want to have a baby.
The tension gets established in this walking conversation where we find out that they're leaving for field work that she wants to leave for.
Mm-hmm.
He seems pretty indifferent towards because he wants to start a family and keep his teaching position.
He's having to give up his tenure at Princeton, where he can talk all he wants about his theoretical frozen snakes, to go on this grant work with his wife, which, guess what, dude? You should have had. I feel like their relationship probably should have seen this coming to a head well before this point in time.
Well, I mean, ignoring the age of the actors, it's established that she was his student before they were married, right? So he's older. So
he's tapping
he
into
married a younger
his own
woman.
students. Yep.
He married a younger woman. She's enthusiastic about doing some fieldwork archaeology or paleontology, whereas he mostly wants to do some local anatomy. If you
The only dig
understand
he
what I'm
wants to
trying
get
say.
into is her pants.
Yeah, this is a biologically focused science
Archaeologist
that he wants to be working. Okay, all right. Listen, I am a professional comedy writer. That's not true.
And there are some holes in this movie's plot, but that's okay. It makes up for it.
Now, this seems like a kind of relationship issue that one may have wanted to hammer down ahead of getting married.
Yes.
But we'll elaborate on that a bit more because it will surprisingly develop throughout the film.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Big shock that this relationship plot point gets come back to eventually. But more importantly, 10:38 p.m. somewhere over the Indian Ocean, we've got a plane.
Are we taking down Bin Laden?
Mark Sheppard's character, who's named Yuri, is on a plane having a conversation with some other guys on the plane. Ambiguous. I described him in my notes as an ambiguously Soviet guy.
Yeah,
because
how does that feel?
He talks about the Russians like he's not Russian. We find out later he's Chechnyan. But okay, so yeah, I was correct. Ambiguously Soviet.
Eastern Bloc.
We're talking about missiles, right? Something about missiles.
They're being so ambiguous.
But then on the radar, 2 fighter jets coming in.
2 clearly American fighter jets hanging out over the Indian Ocean.
Okay, like you're either dead or arrested because you're in a freaking passenger plane.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do anything, or can you?
Ooh.
He just shouts countermeasures.
I died when he shouted countermeasures. They're in like a Cessna, and he's like, countermeasures.
You can't. And they zig a missile.
I'm like, somewhere in the back of that plane, Jay-Z's like, hey man, this is my chartered flight. None of this.
A missile is fired, and they juke it, and we're like, hey, what? But then.
And Sheppard is excited. He's like, yeah, man, good job. We got this.
It wasn't any missile, dude. It was an EMP missile, which detonates and disables the instruments on the plane. Nothing about the plane needing to fly, just the instruments.
Question about that. So, okay.
Was your question, what year is it? Because that was my question.
1, yes. The timestamp did not have year. But question 2 was, I kind of had this feeling that if you knocked out the electronics at most planes since like the 80s, they're probably not going to just be able to follow for a while 2 fighter jets to a nice easy landing.
I bet it would be rough. But, future tech missiles aside, oh God. So after that happens, right, because the fighter jets have not once responded to any communications. They post up on the sides and lead the plane to Diego Garcia, a military base. Who
sounds like
Indian
a cast
Ocean.
member of Reno 911.
It actually exists.
Oh, really?
Diego Garcia is a real place.
Wow.
And it is roughly where they say it is. And it is a US/UK military base.
Wait, it's not an International Federation secret tribal council of the preventative criminals measures prison? I think that's about what they call it.
Yet it isn't.
Well, maybe it is.
That is the military base in the Indian Ocean, but so that scene takes place at 10:38 p.m.
Okay.
Our next timestamp, 11:23 p.m., has them being ushered into their cells in the super prison in the Arctic, and I call bullshit.
What kind of landing/aggressive declothing and reclothing occurred?
This was less than an hour, and they were taken off a plane. First of all, I've never even gotten off a plane in less than an hour. Like, The plane landed at a military base. They were removed from it. They were then loaded up on other vehicles and taken to the Arctic, where they landed in another facility and were like, I don't know the word, interred into a prison. Like, okay.
So is your
listen,
issue
timer.
that they're claiming it took way too long for that to happen?
Yes. We had. What were you doing with all the extra 39 minutes? Like, come on.
Seriously.
No. This was nonsensical, but okay. The other reason that it bothers me is the timestamps are irrelevant. The majority of the action in the film will take place days later.
And we'll talk about that because that bothered me a lot.
So
you don't get any heads up that it's happening.
Irrelevant timestamps. But okay, we're in the super prison, and the cells are actually pretty nice.
It definitely feels kind of Stargate-y inside. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's not like a future tech prison, but it is way nicer than any prison you'd ever be in.
Or maybe a Farscape-y kind of feel.
It's not like a future tech prison, right? Like the exterior was a future tech prison, but the cells are kind of just like...
I mean, it had a touch screen that told you the temperature outside.
You had a touch screen. It had like a recessed bathroom, which I was like, ooh, my goodness, how much are we paying for that?
It had kind of like a Swedish, Norwegian feel of like a nice, independent, like we want to rehabilitate you so we're not making you miserable kind of conditions.
Yeah, it was okay. I was like... This is clearly a super prison for important people, which is what it was going for. I also think this is the only set on the prison. This and the dining room are the only sets in the prison that aren't like industrial tunnels.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I mean, the warden comes in and gives him like a
"You're mine now, bitch" kind of speech.
You have been denationalized and put in this super prison by a committee of like 35 nations or something.
I gotta say, this film from 2002 really nailed the future.
Right. Well, he was buying nukes, so okay, you arrest him, fine. He has no rights anymore, I guess.
Apparently,
just collectively decided on because one third of the UN decided that. I guess 35 nations isn't a lot.
It's enough.
So that segues into the scene where they discover the ice hole.
Holes might be more like it.
So the warden and Sergeant Quinn get in touch with the engineers, and we find out back in the basement there's just a big old hole in a concrete wall.
They're looking at it, and my instant I looked at it, I'm like, you got yourself some ice snakes, buddy. Like, there's no way that's anything else.
A giant ice snake-sized hole.
Yeah.
No, it's about the size of a hole if you drove a truck through.
If you're gonna make a corridor, that's probably what you'd do.
It goes into a ice tunnel that leads to I think it's like a thermal exchange shaft or something. Yeah. But yeah.
And everyone was talking about, oh man, it would take 4,000 men 800 days to cut just through a couple feet. And they're like all dumbfounded by this. And they're like, what could have done this? And all I could think of was, you're the high-tech future prison. You don't have a single camera covering every inch that could have picked up what happened here. And the answer is no. Until later when the answer is absolutely yes. But it's very confusing.
Listen, it must have been a gas explosion.
That's true.
The two guys who understand science both agree that is a bad explanation, but are like, I can't think of anything else that it could have been. So
they honestly just don't want to say, we know it's going to be an ice snake, but they're just going to laugh at us.
Some sort of serpentine creature from the depths coming to kill me. But no, yeah, gas explosion, so I can keep my
I did write at this point, we're 22 minutes in, and there has not been enough Dean Cain in this movie.
Well,
it redeems itself, but early on, we do not get the DC I want.
You're going to have to wait a little longer.
Yes.
Because we're going to introduce our cast of the rest of the super prisoners. Starting with Kelly Mitch, Prince of Darkness, as he ascribes to himself.
I called him quote unquote cool hacker. Like,
I called him Ian too,
Yeah.
because he reminded me way too much of
he
you.
had some of the hair that I, if we ever release a video, we probably won't, but the hair that I got going on right now is a decent approximation of the front of his hair.
He looked like a 20-something my brother.
My God.
And he was a hacker doofus.
Who's the worst?
And basically, he comes into the scene to start shit with a woman and be an idiot.
Absolute idiot.
Right? That woman, Patricia O'Boyle, IRA, who drops the great line when he comes on to her, I would have lesbian sex with your dead grandmother before I would even consider the likes of you.
You know what?
Which
I still think she left the door open because she chose his grandmother. At least she stayed in the bloodline. There, you got a chance.
It could happen, boys.
She's feisty.
We're not out yet. We're not out yet.
I was so confused at why this prison let all 6 of its prisoners, as they announce what they've got going on right now, but they're bringing 20,000 in next month. Just dine like
all
this.
6.
Like
super prison communal dining room.
They thought this through.
So we learned that Yuri's sidekick's name is Peter Yuval, and there are 2 other prisoners, Jose and Ben Shad. I don't know what Jose did, but Ben Shad was involved with Iraqi chemical weapons. But you don't need to remember
I remember
the two
what
of
Ben
them.
Shea did because they say something along the lines of, remember Oklahoma City or something like that, and it made me remember.
Oh, no, that was, Jose had something to do with Oklahoma.
And I was, at this point in this film, I said, there's a lot of strong glorifying attacking America in this film. Like, everyone's talking about it.
That's who's in the denationed super prison. Duh. So another seed, right? We basically have the lineup of super prisoners, right? So in my head, I say, okay, this has to have a payoff then, right? Because at some point, these super prisoners are going to be relevant in the movie, and we're going to need to know that Ben Shad was an Iraqi chemical weapons maker, and that Patricia was in the IRA, and that Kelly Mitch is a hacker. We're going to need a hacker later. Okay, I see what you're doing.
And something about the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah, somebody's going to need a bomb. Awesome. Cool stuff.
Little did you know that we're not going to see these people for the next hour of this movie.
Yeah, little did I know, breathing is coming from the ice hole, or a sound that is similar to breathing.
The closed captions for this snake has some interesting choices on what they think snake anatomy can produce.
So they have like a command room, which is like it's like a decagon shaped room with 3 sets of 6 monitors on each wall.
It kind of gave me Professor X vibes.
It's it's Cerebro. This is where we find all the mutants. No, there's just like sets of 6 CRTs on each wall. There's like a mid, high, and low section of each wall. So you have like 3 sets of 6, and then I believe it was a decagon.
Really small screens.
And then there's a single chair
for the guy in the middle to be able to actually see them effectively.
Yeah, the dude's sitting like 6 feet away from like a 14-inch monitor trying to read what's going on.
And this was pre-flat screen. These were not good monitors. They're all black and white.
2 monitors.
Yeah.
This movie was not filmed in high definition.
No.
None of those monitors were HD either.
Which at least explains why this guy is giving poor Jenkins the worst advice. Because Jenkins actually has good instincts.
All right, I love this exchange because it told us exactly how competent the guards were. Because Sergeant Quinn is on, watch over duty in the command room. And Jenkins is like, I think I hear something from the hole. and Sergeant Quinn's like, no, you don't.
Like, bro, you don't.
No, you don't.
Stop it.
No, I think I do. Jenkins, there's nothing
Jenkins,
there.
you're in an Arctic glacier and you're not wearing gloves. You don't hear anything in the hole.
Back and forth ensues, and then Jenkins is ordered to go into the hole.
All I could think was like, Jenkins, don't go in the ice tunnel. You know this is a bad idea.
Without backup, they freaking hang a lantern on it because he's like, what, alone?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you're the one there. But I'll call the sleeping engineers.
Not my guards.
Not guards.
Because I don't want to wake my guards.
Give you
They're my
backup.
boys.
But get in the flipping hole, Jenkins.
That is an interesting trope that comes up multiple times in this movie of people questioning the terrible tactical advice that they're given and then just going, all right then, okay.
I mean, I am a layman when it comes to strategy. I'm a non-professional. I did not go to West Point. I did not study the military arts. But oh man, everybody in this movie is dumber than me.
My God.
Because all right, you don't know there's a murder snake here yet. Fine, you make some bad choices. Just like Jenkins going into the pipe.
But once you know there's a murder snake, you should probably stop making bad choices.
What? When Jenkins is in the pipe, I believe he puts his gun down.
I mean, because at that point, you know a giant snake's going to eat you and that gun is useless.
So Jenkins is gone. The engineers pull up in their car, and we have the classic dripping liquid moment where Peluso is like, I don't see Jenkins, there's nobody here. And then we get like I think the coolest shot in the movie. It's like a one-take camera pan or camera spin around Peluso from like lower, and then it closes up on his face, and then he gets wrapped by the snake.
I enjoyed that.
Which, in this scene, Snake looks pretty good. It's CG. It's old CG. This scene doesn't look too bad.
I actually thought, and it was one of the notes I took toward the end of the movie, but since we're talking about what we'll do now, they don't do a terrible job for 2001 CG or 2002 CGI Snake. It's not it's not an embarrassment. It's not, no offense, but early Asylum level CGI or, you know, although the plane landing and taking off does have some like Command and Conquer Red Alert quality CGI vibes to it. But you watch something, you're like, all right, fine, it's a snake. It doesn't make me go, I didn't laugh at it being comically bad. I got annoyed that they didn't show the kills for more than 2 seconds, and they were really I think they hit it in a lot of ways, which is probably smart.
Well, so I think of graphics in video games, and I think of years in video games, right? So I mean, 2002 was like Morrowind, Warcraft 3, Mario Sunshine, Metroid Prime, like things that are very classic, like graphically, you know, you'd see the pixels still, right? You could still see that line of old era tech, right?
We're nowhere near the uncanny valley yet.
We're just on the verge of the original Xbox. I think the highest graphically fidelity game that came out in 2002 was like Splinter Cell.
Yep.
Which looked great.
And it looked great at its time,
and I think that the level of work on this snake is probably comparable. So like, if you're not a 30-year-old man or a 30-plus-year-old adult who's been consuming media since that time, you might think this snake kind of looks shitty. But I think it looks pretty good for the time period it came out in.
Yeah, I thought it did a solid job for the time.
So like, that was cool.
Again, I was a little bummed out that we didn't get to see a little bit longer kills, a little bit more gruesome kills, but hey, I'm not it's a minor demerit.
You should be more bummed out by the fact that more than half the kills that take place in this movie are not caused by a snake.
Okay, yes. That pissed me off, and we'll get to that in a moment. I was actually the most annoyed. So, we're going to do a little jump in here.
Well, let's just say at this point we're down 3 people. 3 people have now died. The snake kills the 2 engineers and has killed Jenkins. So there we go.
We're gonna jump to the equator and a really nice archaeological site where Dean Cain and his wife are still fighting about him wanting her to have a baby.
Well, it is 1:46 p.m., so that would be the time to have that argument.
Now, the way the film is shot, I'm assuming this is parallel time. In reality, it's 4 days later?
It's 3 days.
3 days later. That's
3 days. 72 hours.
So let's really quickly just revisit Dean Cain and his doctor wife. I'm going to call her doctor wife because no one else does, but apparently she has a doctorate and I'd like her to get credit
for it. Her name is Jessica.
So Dr. Jessica and Dean Cain and Dr. Dean Cain.
Dr. Jean Jessica.
They left Princeton 3 days ago to do this grant research they're getting a letter saying already Princeton wants them to come back and discuss the grant research.
Yeah, we got to talk about your grant. I don't think anybody actually finalized
What
that.
buyer's remorse did Princeton have? We sent the Arctic snake guy to the equator to dig up rocks. I think we might want to rethink this.
We need the unknown lizards professor back. We're losing students like crazy.
Dude, they are so upset that they can't take Frozen Slithers 101.
He's just... Our curriculum is in shambles without this MOOC.
But so anyways, that revelation turns into this giant fight between Dr. Jessica and Dr. Dean Cain to the point that they don't see these army Humvees storming up to their quiet archaeological site. And they get interrupted, and they didn't notice so much that they tersely turn to a soldier and go, "What do you want?"
I'm still just shocked how reasonable their marital problems are.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally the most grounded thing in this entire movie. And like, yeah, we're just a bunch of normal dudes having an argument with our wives over, the roadmap we have for the next 5 years with our relationship, and she wants to go slow and I want to go fast.
And she's just a reasonable wife saying, "Hey, respect what my career is too, and let's have an actual conversation. I'm not just going to do what you want, Superman."
Yeah, but now the army's here to talk to us about the giant murder snake in the super prison.
Well, all right, let's okay, so they don't, and that's an interesting approach they take.
All right.
So the army comes up and is like,
Right.
"Are you Dr. Dean Cain and Dr. Jessica?" And they're like, "Yeah, what do you want?" And they're like,
Yes.
"We need you for a project." And they're like, "Why us?" And they're like, "You're two successful paleontologists." And he goes, "There's like, all right, first off, I question that there are 20 more qualified paleontologists out there if you're teaching at Princeton." But he's like, "There are 20 more qualified people. Why do you need us?" And the army goes, "You're the only one that's published a paper on theoretical frozen snakes." I was like, the army does its
Pretty
research.
Right. They come to him with the pitch of, we found a sealed chamber 12,000 feet down of pure nitrogen, and we want you there to see all the cool undiscovered biodiversity that we're just pulling out of history. Perfect. And wifey,
Dr. Jessica's pregnant
Dr.
instantly.
Jessica.
Yeah.
Dr. Jessica is like, "Oh, yeah."
She literally
We're
throws
going.
a shovel
We're
to
going.
a
We need to
dude
see
and
it.
says, "You're in charge of this now."
Yeah. Which, incidentally, is how I'm quitting my next job.
That's a really good quit.
She's in it 1,000%. And Dean Cain's like, "We already just uprooted our life to come here to do this thing, which we've done for at most a day and a half based on travel
Yeah, right.
times.
We've only just gotten started.
And now we're going to the Arctic to start another thing." And she's like, "Once in a lifetime chance, hun. Once in a lifetime. This is it. This is the thing. It's going to validate all our research. We're going to be fucking balling. So we got to go." And he's like, against my...
I wrote, "Stop being a bitch, Dean Cain. Go to Ice Snake Prison."
I wrote, maybe you guys could just maybe she could go and you could stay or go back to Princeton. You guys could take a couple years apart.
Oh, man. I want that movie where she goes, never comes back, and Dean Cain is dejected and just trying to figure out what happened and becomes like this super spy archaeologist, Dr. Jones style, sneaking into this broken down, defeated prison, finding the snake corpse.
Injecting unidentified lizard blood into him to give him superpowers.
I need that movie. I hope that's Boa too.
All right. They're on a cargo plane with a team. The team is a bunch of soldiers, and they're the only scientists.
And
here.
they're assholes.
They're folksy assholes, because Dean Cain asks him what's up, and they all kind of laugh that he's not informed. And one of them says, "Old Captain Thomas is a little light in the loafers when it comes to giving out information."
Oh, you know what? The classic army complaint about their, supervisors. Them light in the loafers.
While we are 15 minutes out from our destination, we are now informed that no, you're not going to an archaeological dig. You are going to a super prison where there's a murder snake.
Also, we expect you guys to solve this, so if you could just figure that out, thanks.
Also, there's no approach lights, no beacon. the site has gone dark, and there's actually like a weird scene where he kind of repeats that statement.
I caught that.
Where he's like, no,
because Dean Cain wasn't there to hear it the first time, and he really wanted to hear Dean Cain to hear him deliver this line.
I think it's like a weird cutting thing because this happened before back at the campus. There's like when they're having a walk and talk, there's a line about their relationship, which like is basically dropped twice. Like they're mildly interrupted, and then he says the whole sentence again. It was just kind of weird.
They kind of go around a corner, I think, and they're like, "Did you catch that? We're gonna do it again."
Yeah. I feel like this was just like an editing issue. Like that they meant to chop it.
I was gonna say, I think this was just something in continuity and editing they just missed, but I'm glad because it gave one of my favorite characters a second chance to be sassy, which is the pilot of this cargo plane.
Dude, this is my favorite black pilot since Snakes on a Plane.
He's great.
Which, incidentally, has many plot similarities.
A very significant
To the
one.
end
Yeah.
of this
I'm pretty sure this was at 100% an inspiration for Snakes on a Plane.
Folksy asshole major captain, whatever his title is, basically when he hears that there is no approach lights, we cannot see a beacon, there's no visibility, and we have no idea where the runway is, just says, gotta put her down somewhere. You're very cavalier about this crash landing that is happening right
What is
now.
his state of mind with his well-being that he's just like, fuck it, land, I don't care.
Put her down somewhere.
Yeah, no, sassy pilot can land a plane. Like, this was one of the best landings I've ever fictionally seen.
All right, but then he drops the clock for the rest of the film, which is the plane is leaving in 12 hours. The next cargo plane is due in 30 days. So,
solve it.
12 hours or you're stuck here for a month.
This movie did feel a lot like Blue Stinger, the game, where you had a lot of running around in between things, like we're about to have as they get off the plane to try and get to where you're going.
Well, my question is, how's he fueling it? They exit the plane and literally cannot see the building. They didn't land on a runway.
And they've already established that they don't have enough fuel where turning around was not an option to go back to the mainland.
But he's going to fuel it up and leave in 12 hours, so I guess he's just amazing at his job.
I'm just going to say, yeah, hacks. Guy knows what he's doing. He can figure it out. It does not help that they spend 10 of the 12 hours wandering around the outside of the base trying to get into it.
You know, unrelated, as a New Englander, I don't think the snow looked that bad.
No, that was
like
that you can land in that storm. Yeah,
snow.
You can land in that storm. I think they over-exaggerated. That is not South Pole snow. So eventually they get in and they enter what I called a combination of the Hypercube Event Horizon airlock. I got a lot of Event Horizon vibes from, or they were trying to be. The vibe not being scary or intense, but just like some of the scenery styles.
Were they like big panel lights?
Yeah.
I feel like there were like panel lights. Like it was like a white hexagonal corridor with like panel lighting.
It reminds me more of the that hallway scene in the first Resident Evil movie in the Umbrella Corporation where the laser chops the guy up.
It's got a very like moon base or tech kind of vibe to it, which does not match any of the other scenes we've seen here, but I guess this is just the airlock because the next room is like a concrete room with like a door scanner.
We're going into the boiler area of a football stadium for the rest of this movie.
The major points out that he's got the only key, right? So he opens the door to get in, but that's it.
And you don't just need the key, you need his handprint, his retinal scan. It's very late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, so without him, you're trapped in. Almost immediately, we meet up with the warden and the guards.
And we get a mind fuck that it has been 2 weeks since this started.
It's been 2 weeks since this has started, which doesn't match. It was 72 hours at the equator. It's now 2 weeks. Incidentally, it's been 2 weeks and 6 people are dead.
Okay, I'm so angry because the snake, we saw it kill 3 people. Why wouldn't you let us see it kill 3 more people? Why would you just tell us that in exposition?
kill 3 more people over the course of 2 weeks.
Most
days were fine.
And what we'll learn in a little bit, because we're not going to see him for a while, and I just want you to know, the prisoners have no idea. Are they feeding them? Have they just forgotten about the prisoners? Are they just hiding? Because the prisoners seem to be doing just fine and don't know anything.
We get to a map table where we start expositoring at each other. And, all right, Dean Cain's given his, thoughts about the snake's patterns, where it's going to be, where based off heat and movement and what. And at one point, there's this great exchange between Sergeant Quinn and Dean Cain where Dean Cain's like, it's like a real-life Jurassic Park. And Sergeant Quinn goes, I saw Jurassic Park. Everybody got killed.
I loved it.
And then Dean Cain almost sheepishly is like, not everybody. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then the warden says, this is not a movie. I got a prison to run. Lying on both accounts, because it is a movie and he's pretty bad at running.
This scene had a lot of really great quotable moments. I enjoyed one where they go, all right, we're going to work together. We're going to hunt down and kill it. And Dean Cain and Dr. Jessica are like, oh, no, we have to capture it. And the warden turns to him and goes,
I want to keep it.
I'm not running no motherfucking game preserve. Which I'm like, you're right. That's accurate. You are not.
Yeah, it is stated that when the snake's dead, they can have it. They also kind of scope out the size. I think they say it's like 80, is it feet?
They say it's over 80 feet long, and Dean Cain goes, that's a large snake, to which the sergeant has to correct him, big, that's a motherfucking understatement.
This dialogue is peak.
Have you been workshopping these while you're hiding from the snake, waiting for someone to talk about this stuff? Because he was ready for one-liners.
This is the most written scene in the movie, and you can tell because everything about it is gold.
Yeah. What's not so great is their approach to how they're going to handle this.
You mean we're going to have these, what is it? It's like 5 or 6 soldiers head down to the tunnel and just all right, so the guards aren't going. The guards have basically taken the stance of, it's not our job to get killed by a snake, which is fair. So the soldiers go down by themselves into the tunnel. Quinn and the doctors head to the control room with the warden. Mm-hmm. And the major just starts splitting dudes off from the group. He's like, instantly. You 2 down there, you 2 down there, you 2 down there.
The soldiers look at each other and like, by ourselves?
Yeah, they get split to a pair, and then he radios to the pair to split off, and they're like, "Are you really?
Come on, man! You're just trying to kill me, aren't you?"
So, surprising nobody, the soldiers who get isolated are killed off. I think one of the 2 is killed visually. I believe he gets speared by a snake.
It reminded me in Nightmare of Noon, which we watched recently, where the car chase accident where the motorcycle would flip over and hit the ground and then cut instantly. You're like, Ed, we got to see nothing of what happened there, but okay.
Yeah, the soldiers are just kind of ambiguously getting offed, and the major demands that the guards come help over the radio.
What was interesting during the snake offing them, and you mentioned this sort of in passing when we first saw the ice hole, is the closed captionings wrote the snake was roaring, which I thought was a very interesting 10,000-year-old snake habit that we are learning for the first time thanks to this great discovery.
Yeah, I thought snakes I realized that I didn't know a ton about snakes as they started talking about the science, because they were like, it'll go someplace warm, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then they're like, snakes can't see movement, and I'm like, I don't know if that's or no, snakes can't hear.
We've had multiple. Oh yeah, snakes can't hear. Because I say we've had multiple shots of the terrible snake vision, which is just kind of sort of infrared.
It's like there's like a wavy effect over it, and it's kind of just like it's not even like an infrared red. It's just like a red.
The snake has been living on some good drugs, for some good nitrogen for 10,000 years.
So the major demands that the guards come help, which prompts an argument between the warden and Sergeant Quinn, and the warden threatens to fire him if he doesn't go. So he goes.
And what was funny was the sergeant goes, "Who are you going to replace me with? An accurate, logical response.
But like,
And the warden's bullshit, any fucker I can find. How is that convincing to you in this life or death situation as, oh, you trumped me, I better call in my guys?
none of these guys need to go. They could just be like, no. We're okay, I'm fired, but no, I'm still like...
I don't know. It made no sense.
As Quinn goes to leave, another thing that makes no sense, Dean Cain signs up. He volunteers to come down. Quinn unquestionably just drops, "Welcome to the party."
Welcome to the party. My favorite line in this movie.
Dean's rationale is, well, I'm not doing anything here. You know what you're not doing here? Dying. Not dying here.
You are alive.
Jessica jumps in as well.
I was expecting, so we then see them like walking out and Jessica jumps in and I was expecting another baby fight right here and I was really disappointed at this point. I was in on baby fighting at this point now. I wanted it here. We didn't get it.
Air out your maritals. Come on.
Yeah. What better time, walking from class, archaeological dig, snake danger. The perfect times to argue about children.
So while this is happening, the warden is like coordinating the soldiers over his the world's worst radar or whatever he's using, and the whole op is just a clusterfuck. Like,
it's a terrible map.
Command, not even with like the physical activities, but like command keeps switching between the warden and the major. Like the major will start doing a thing and the warden will be like, no, you have to go the other way. And the major will be like, okay, and they'll do it. But like, in theory, the major is in charge. The warden shouldn't have any oversight.
He's made it very clear that they're coming to kill this before we get people out of here, and the warden got kind of steamrolled.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense. They end up shooting a guard named Simmons because he looks like a snake on the radar.
Okay, and by looks like a snake, you mean it was a giant yellow arrow going in the way of the 3 yellow arrows that were his men.
And the warden's like, shoot it, shoot it. And they're like, we don't have any visual. He's like, it's coming right for you, shoot it, you dumbass.
I was expecting the snake to be in like the pipes above them. That's what I thought was going to happen. But no, they just kill Simmons.
We get the shot up body of Simmons. Poor boy.
You know who's not pleased about it? The major.
Major is not pleased.
He throws his microphone headset. He's so displeased.
He tossed his mic headset. Quinn, the guards, and the doctors are coming in on a little truck, slowly. And Dean's like, snakes can't hear. They sense vibrations. We should walk. And Quinn's like, I'm not walking. I'm not walking. And Dean's like, but we'll die. We'll be making ourselves a beacon for the snake and die is the understanding behind that statement. And Quinn's like, any of you guys want to walk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
And then he just drives away. He's like, asshole. I'm like, you're a winner. You went from my favorite to a winner.
Everyone in this movie who dies deserves to die based on how stupid and cavalier they are about the giant snake situation.
Well, you know who doesn't deserve to die are the next 2 guards who get solid snake snuck up on. And yes, I had to use solid snake snuck up on in my writing. Yeah. As we get stealth snake for a moment, which is hilarious to me.
Stealth snake kills 2. And that leads to a situation where my notes are everyone blows up because of dumb stuff. But basically, the major just starts. So not only are we in Industrial Underground, but the pipes in Industrial Underground are all carrying like flammable or combustible gases.
Yeah, and they did set that up. There was like a throwaway line. So I gave it was fine.
But the major just starts firing off his gun, and one thing leads to another, and all of the soldiers explode.
So, okay, I'm going to try and describe it because I want you to explain to me the delay that happens in this moment. So, after Solid Snake snipes 2 soldiers, I tried to get as many S's in that sentence as possible. Our major turns around and starts firing at it, and the snake actually runs away. So they're in this long hallway, and in the middle of it, there's a little staircase up and like a cross hallway, and the snake runs up and goes over that. And on that top cross hallway, our major hits a bunch of gas pipes, and they burst, but they don't explode yet. Don't worry about it. So the warden realizes, oh no, there's gas. And coming from the other end of the hallway are all his guys on trolleys. Like Austin Powers' little hallway trolleys going the other way. And the
Golf
warden's like,
carts,
don't go that way. But the signal isn't working. So somehow, I don't know how, the 30-second delay between the pipe getting shot and exploding is just enough time for everyone to be right underneath it and die in fire.
So yeah, it's literally all of the soldiers and guards. All of them explode. The only reason Dean and Jess don't explode is because they've been walking. But they are now the entire force to take out this snake. And I think Dean Cain has like a pistol.
Oh, he does, because at one point he will throw that at the snake in frustration, which made me happy.
But the snake comes for them because they're the only things left here. And, they run from it, and then they
Wait, hold on. Before they run from it. So they come under the bridge. The snake's in the hallway, like, eating all these corpses it would. Actually, I appreciated that. It wouldn't waste that food. Dean Cain's like, all right, we gotta sneak out of here. His wife's like, I want to take a picture. It's history. And
she's like, science, bitch.
And he goes, I just don't want to die, which is such a great reaction in that moment.
Relatable Cain.
Wife takes a picture, gets the snake's attention. They have to sprint back down the hallway, up a ladder. They have trouble getting a cage off the ladder. Dean gets up there. His wife, she can't quite get up there. The snake knocks her off the ladder. He thinks she's dead, but she crawls into a little pipe thing, and the snake goes its own way.
Yeah, she ends up in an air vent. He gets back up to the prison, busts in on the warden, and is just unhappy about the current situation with the dead wife and all the people. And there are now less than 4 hours until the plane leaves. So he proposes that we let the prisoners out and get them armed.
How did this take 8 hours? Because we watched it in real time.
Well, because the plot mandated that time pass that way. Yeah, no, that was like 40 minutes, and it was not 8 hours. But less than 4 hours to the plane leaves, and his argument to sell the warden, because the warden's like, I can't morally let those guys out of their jail cells. And Dean Cain, it's not a fucking moral issue. It's simple mathematics. Yeah, more people, more chance to survive.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. At this point, we are 1 hour and 5 minutes in the movie, and I was like, oh, we're finally going to get this prisoner snake movie I was expecting.
Yeah, you could have a curtain drop right now and say Act 3,
yes,
and I wouldn't be surprised, because that's we have a scene where the prisoners gets, we have the little bit of, dicking with them, but prisoners all get out and are armed.
Hey, Dean Cain's a good deal maker is what it comes down to. Okay, he can make some sweet deals between two parties.
Yeah, the warden doesn't want to do it, but we can tell that Yuri has kind of become the boss of the prison over the last 2 weeks, because everybody's going to kill the warden when they get out of the cell, but he's like, we gave him our word. Okay.
Mark Sheppard, I know you're going to be my favorite character in this movie. I get it.
So we formulate a plan of taking 2 teams to get to the ice hole.
So before we go into that, a lot of the movies you and I have done when we've had you on the podcast have had some third act problems. I am so happy to say that this movie doesn't have as many third act problems as the last ones.
So, one of the things about this movie that really both kind of contextualizes it, or makes it feel like its time period to me, and also makes it just watchable, is that the whole thing is moving along at a pretty rapid pace. There's not a lot of wasted time. There's not a lot of exposition is done in mainly 3 different scenes throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Right? We have the scene where, he's on the plane getting told what's going on. He had the scene where he's explaining to them what the strategy is. And then we have this scene right here where we are now building our final plan to do stuff. Everything else is pretty much just banter.
This was the only part of the movie that felt like it was a little long and slowed down for me. I felt like they stood around this stupid red room table a little bit too long for my liking.
So as I said earlier, when we introduced this super squad of villains, right? This should be the payoff point of that, right? We have
Yes.
several different people with several different talents and personalities, and we should be building basically like a heist to get out of here, right? Like, oh, we need the hacker for this. Oh, we need the bomber for that. Oh, we need the bomber. Okay, so the plan we come up with...
Army of the Dead part of the movie, you know?
So the plan we come up with is to split into 2 teams and go to the ice hole where we can just leave.
So you're telling me we introduced them just so we knew there were 6?
Well, we got to split into 2 teams so we can go to ice hole and leave, right? We're down to 6. We're down to 8 total people, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Team A is the warden and Dean Cain, and then the hacker and the IRA woman who hate each other, and then Team B, which seems underpowered.
Terrible draft picks that way. I would have totally split them up in kickball.
I think they're a little nerfed compared to the other team, which is just for Mark Sheppard, Yuri and his bud, and then the 2 other essentially nameless villains who didn't really have any dialogue at this point.
But they look like they could walk in a straight line functionally. So you're like, all right, you're going to be able to move. You're fine. No one has issues in this group. Mark Sheppard's way better at picking his players. Yeah.
They all look like proper criminals, whereas the hacker is clearly useless in combat, and the IRA lady is actively already saying that she wants to kill him.
What the fuck is up with their whole making an IRA statement in 2002 in this Boa Snake Arctic Prison movie? Because they mention it all the time.
Well, that's just her. That's her one trait. Like, that's her character trait. Like, we didn't. This guy is quirky hacker, right? Like, overconfident, arrogant, quirky hacker guy, right?
Makes sense. Late 90s, that was a thing.
And Yuri is like a vaguely Soviet, competent criminal with a military background guy.
Bit of the mastermind. Yep.
Patty's whole thing is just Irish violence, and that was encompassed. Like, that's the thing they picked. It's like, you're Irish violence,
it's just
lady.
Such a weird choice.
It's weird, but I mean, it's no.
It had to have been like throw darts at a board. Oh, we got Irish violence. Okay, that's what Patty is. Oh, we're gonna name her Patty. It's perfect.
Listen, this was 2002.
Sure. All right.
We were putting people into boxes everywhere. This is just what we had, right?
It made no sense, but I was
funny.
Like, it is funny just because of the stupid lines that hacker tries to throw. I don't even think I wrote them at this point. I wrote they had an argument at one point. Someone complains about him shutting down AOL.
Yeah, he makes a bunch of dumb claims, which are funny as a person who works in tech, but okay. So they split into teams, right? Team A, Team B. So Team A seems underpowered, but fortunately Team B immediately gets attacked by the snake. So in theory, Team A is safe for the scene where the hacker steals a golf cart, starts getting trigger happy with his gun, drives straight off, and then literally drives into the snake and gets tail stabbed. At this point, I was like, do snakes have spikes on their tails? Because I don't think that's a thing.
This one does, because it's going to come back again.
This one does, but is that a thing, right?
10,000 years ago, it was a thing.
No species of snake, no snake species has any sort of stinger on its tail.
Well, shit. Internet instantly contradicted itself.
Well, the next people ask statement is, do snakes have a hemipenis? And I'm not going to check. That's for you, the listeners, to discover on your own. So the warden blows up by shooting a gas line.
Okay. The same gas line that already was exploded and killed a bunch of people. I wondered in my notes, how many times can the same gas pipeline explode?
I just want to say it's about it's less than 13 minutes from the beginning of the third act. And both Team A and Team B are down to 2 people.
I like that. I like the speed. They're like, we're finishing strong.
But out of those deaths, only one of the snake kills is on screen, really.
Mm-hmm.
And
one of them is just like a crush against a pole.
It's down to just the war criminals on Team B. And Team A is Dean Cain and Patty. And Patty has an issue with snakes.
I would at this point, too.
No, she has an Irish issue with snakes, which is apparently there's no snakes in Ireland.
Well, sure. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to Google it. I'm just going to say yes.
She's a good Christian girl, and she knows that all the snakes are run out of Ireland because snakes are evil. And so she makes a promise with Dean Cain. Promise no snake will kill me, which right now is kind of hard to meet, right?
Ooh.
Given that is currently the largest cause of death in this hemisphere, or this continent.
That is up there with if Dean Cain turned to his wife at this point. It's like, promise we'll have a baby. And, you're like, oh, you've got a lot of other priorities that are going to be hard to make that one fulfilled.
Speaking of Dean Cain's wife, Team B runs into her, just wandering around in the tunnels like she's a little haggard, but
a little nitrogen drunk,
To keep the status quo, as soon as she shows up, the other guy gets killed. So it's just Yuri and the wife.
Yeah, we go down to our two pairs, and I was really disappointed with all the stakes in this movie and the obvious Dr. Jones role of Dean Cain that we didn't get I hate snakes line.
No,
or why did it have to be a snake?
Why
no one hates snakes. Yeah.
Yuri and Jessica make it to the ice tunnel, and they bomb a hole in the surface, and she's like, I can't leave. I can't leave without my husband.
Fair.
And Yuri, noted war criminal, arrested by a tribunal of 35 countries, tried and sent to a super prison, says, I promise I'll come back for him. And she says, okay, and they leave.
But you know what? He says it with those eyes that just make you want to go, I believe you. But I also think you're stealing from my 401k.
They kind of had a little vibe going, the two of them. Like,
they had good chemistry. Dude, Mark Sheppard can't have good chemistry with people.
He's perfect. Like,
he is
in another life kind of vibe where it was like, yeah, we could have, but
like,
we're not.
You could have lived a little more dangerous life. And she's like, I could have made you settle down. Oh, wait, I don't want to settle down.
You wouldn't buy nukes if I was around. I could change him. Yuri and wife have fled. Team A gets to the tunnel. We can see that they're the second team to the tunnel because Yuri left his gun there. Because who would need that? They make it to the same tunnel. Snakes come in. Sorry, Patty. I know we made a promise.
But we're going to climb up this icy little ramp that's been bombed out, and you're going to slide down with that snake. Now,
She's
question.
Slow sliding to the snake.
Slow sliding to the snake. And this was kind of like hilariously but sad. She's like, don't let this happen. And
I mean, that is
what
like, her face is screaming.
I won't. And she's like, you are. Literally how that scene went.
Actually surprising me, because at this point I didn't think he'd do it. Dean Cain fulfills his promise and shoots her.
Do you think he fulfilled his promise, or he was just such a terrible shot? Because he shot a ton of shots first before the kill shot, and I think he was just trying to hit the snake.
Either way.
Because he gets so mad because you see her body flopped over and the snake dragging her down, and he's so mad he just throws the gun at the snake.
Listen, either way, quest completed. Doesn't matter who finished it. She got shot.
Doesn't matter if you hit your optional objectives, you got the main one.
She was only maybe 40% of the way into that snake when she got shot, so it didn't kill her. It's fine.
Mostly killed her.
So, Dean climbs to the surface and basically collapses.
I was really nervous we were going to get a stupid quick ending here.
Right? So, noted war criminal also keeps his promise that he made to wife several minutes ago, comes back for Dean Cain and helps him to the plane. And when he gets there, his wife's there, and they have a little hug moment, right?
My only theory is when Dean brokered the deal between, the Palestinians, the prisoners and the warden. He and Yuri shared a moment. Was like, I can't promise you, I don't have the power to get you off, but you're going to have a better chance out there and I'm not going to stop you kind of thing. And they looked and was like, all right, you're giving me my shot. You're a good guy. I'm really a good guy.
I think it's just literally that they wrote a character who keeps his word. He promised the warden that the prisoners wouldn't kill him, and he said, no, we're not going to kill him. And then, he's promised the wife he'd go back for the husband, and he did. And I was just like, okay, I didn't expect you to.
And I know you're going to talk about the plot later on once we finish up this in a second, but because we're almost at the end. But I think it's very interesting that they made Mark Sheppard's character the better good guy than Dean Cain's character.
Oh, he's wicked good guy. Like that's the
Yeah, he's the likable guy. Dean Cain's not all that likable.
I beg to disagree, but yeah, you're definitely in Mark Sheppard's camp.
I'm talking about in the shadow of Mark Sheppard here.
All three of them make it to the plane. Husband, wife hug. Plane starts trying to take off.
Our pilot has somehow got this plane ready to go.
Boy's good at his job, but somehow we're overloaded.
All right, so they're taking off, and I'm like, I need this snake to jump and get on this fucking plane. And they take a little bit of time to do it, and they don't show the jump, which is what I wanted more than anything. But the snake, the pilot's like, oh, it must be the ice. We're flying heavy. And they get a wonderful shot of the snake latched on by its mouth to the cargo of the plane. Question for you now. So
I am an authority on snakes. So
I would have been okay with two different endings here. The one that happened, fine. Totally fine with how this ends. But I also would have been okay if they pulled like the Jurassic Park kind of ending where like just kind of pans out and you see it on it and you're like,
yeah, they just fly away with the snake on it.
We're bringing the snake to the mainland. Because from my perspective, that gives you a lot more options, the better ending if you're going to try and franchise this.
I don't think anybody thought this was going to franchise.
I think Dean Cain thought this was going to franchise.
I believe this is a direct-to-video film.
Probably. So my other question then is, so what does happen is the snake gets on the plane. How does it go from holding on in this takeoff scenario with its mouth to getting its body to a point where the first emergence in the plane we see of it is a spike through the co-pilot's chest?
Clearly, it worked its tail up the wheel well and through the interiors.
I mean, you're the expert.
It spears the co-pilot, and then everybody notices that there's a giant snake among them.
Best kill of the movie, too.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's just like quick and like abrupt, and the dude's kind of just like,
it's got a little gory, too. The tail coming through his chest and throat. Yeah.
And then the pilot is like, oh, fuck.
Unflappable pilot.
And thus begins the plane duel between Dean Mark
duel
and the snake.
We got ourselves an Arctic standoff.
It is snapping its face around in the cabin. They're both kind of pressed up against opposite walls in little alcove-y things, trying to figure out what to do. And then Yuri is like, distract it. Go over there and distract it.
Go stand by the open cargo hold and distract it.
Dean, I guess mentally echoing his earlier sentiment of not doing anything over here, is just like, fine, and just goes and starts doing it.
Instantly trips and falls.
They basically lasso the snake with some cords and tie it to a parachute, which that they then open as the door is open. So the exterior cargo door is open. And they open the parachute outside of it. It's rigged up to it, so it kind of gets pulled out of the plane. But as this is happening, Yuri gets caught up in the ropes and is ripped from the plane with the snake.
You had one job to watch where your feet are in that scenario. Like you said earlier, I'm not a parachuting expert. I'm not a planes expert. I'm not a rope expert. But what I do know is if you're going to combine those three things, watch where your feet are.
You can't let him live. He's
because he would have taken Dean Cain's wife. It would have been just a tragic.
No, because he's a Chechen war criminal who's buying nukes. You literally can't let him live, right? He should have been in the super prison. I mean, he is, but he's also a super criminal who should have been in a super prison.
Yeah, no, he gets to have the best death in the movie. He gets to be the martyr. He gets to be the character shucks, but yeah.
And Dean Cain's big, because in the end of a movie, usually you have a sweet one-liner at some point. Dean Cain did not drop a one-liner when he parachuted the snake. Several minutes earlier, he dropped his last one-liner of the film, a big, oh shit, which landed pretty soft.
So softly that I didn't even catch it until he just told me he said that right now.
Yeah, usually I would want like a snakulator or like a, mind the drop or,
Yeah.
some sort of silly, stupid one-liner because that's what I like. But, Yuri gets caught up, ripped from the plane,
They just kind of fly away happily.
couple hugs, pilot somethings, credits roll.
Yeah.
And
So,
that
impressions
ends.
of this film, Brett.
Oh, man, I love this movie. I'm so glad I saw it. I have a soft spot for Dean Cain,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if you aren't in your 30s and spent a lot of your youth watching daytime television, you might not have as much a thing for Dean Cain and this kind of movie as me. But this hits me right in my nostalgia, and
Yeah.
incidentally, Dean Cain is the star of my favorite bad movie, which we may watch someday. It's not a horror movie, so I don't know
We'll
if
keep
it
them in
quite falls
suspense.
into it. I'm not going to let the people know. I've told you about it before. I'm not
Yeah.
going to let the people
I
know.
agree
Sorry.
with exactly what you just said about. I do enjoy Dean Cain, and yeah, this movie. I'll have you talk more, but like, this movie definitely hits me in the same way.
Yeah, it's just that feel of that serialized live action, kind of drama, kind of comedy that you would have in the 90s and 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
your SG1s or that's the one that, sticks the most out in my head. It just being kind of camp, kind of silly. We have bantery dialogue, we have, exposition dumps, but essentially it's just a charismatic dude doing the hero stuff and I think it went well, right?
I honestly was. So we watched the trailer beforehand,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's a strong trailer. I
Strong
have to
trailer,
say
yep.
this movie lived up to its strong trailer better than any of the films we've done so far.
Yes. I don't think that. Okay, you did mention third act problems as a common criticism of mine. I don't think we had third act problems from a watchability perspective. I think that we
Agreed.
definitely did not get payoff on a lot of the seeds that were sown throughout
Mm-hmm.
the film. So from a writing angle, I'm a little miffed there, but it was entertaining and fun. So I'm not going to hold that against it. I just thought that if we
Yeah.
had some sort of loop around to if there was a moment where the engineers and the warden were in a situation where one of them was threatened and the other could do something about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? We could have a payoff between that disgruntled dynamic we'd set up, right?
Oops, I couldn't get to the elevator door in time to let you be safe, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. Or maybe he did help and that showed exceptional character or something, right? So there could have been a payoff there.
This movie really threw out a lot of things just to throw them out there, and like you said, it didn't wrap up almost any of the loose ends or any of the ideas it brought in. I think there is a tremendous movie you could make out of the bones of this. That being said, this is an absolutely enjoyable watch. And I would, I'm not racing to watch it again, but if you had a bunch of friends a year or two down the line, they want to put it on, I would absolutely watch this with other people.
I also feel like that this movie definitely isn't the original product that they designed.
Oh, yeah. So take me through that thought process you were talking about.
Right. So from a high level, just the plot synopsis is there's an ice snake at a super prison in the Arctic.
Mm-hmm.
Those were different movies that were tied together.
Yeah.
Somebody had a movie idea, I think, about a super prison, maybe a prison breakout or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of whatever, right? Because New Alcatraz, that is a film idea.
Yep. In fact, that is the alternate title.
Yeah, I think that was scrapped at some point and we turned it into a creature feature, which I don't have a problem with, but it just feels like there was. I doubt that this was the idea of a movie that somebody put together just as their pitch, right?
Yeah.
Super prison as a snake show up. That's not a pitch. That is a thing that happens after something else went wrong.
It makes sense, that idea, because you take the prisoners and all their backstories and all these things that are so irrelevant to what actually happens in the core of the plot.
Right.
I bet you that was the original movie. And they're like, we don't have enough. What else can we do with this? We've shot some of it. It's just not working. Let's turn this into there's a snake, because then you lose those characters for a good second act of the movie. They're just gone, and then they bring them back to wrap it up. It definitely feels like there was piecemeal to this approach.
And I mean, I could be wrong, obviously. I have no insight into how this actually happened, but that's just kind of the vibe I get as I'm consuming it.
I'm going to say it's 100% correct, and don't research it. I'm just going to say it's right. Yeah.
You heard there? Authoritative answer. The primary source, my brother, says that's exactly what happened.
I'm really impressed that Sam nailed this word for word of what happened in this movie, with that being the case. I could not have projected how well she did with that.
I'm looking forward to this episode coming out so I can hear whatever the heck she comes up with. And I'm a little bummed that she's not going to watch this movie because...
she may, after listening to this, have to watch this movie. All right, so Brett, did you like this?
Hell yeah.
I knew that answer. Yeah, I did too. This was fun.
Yeah.
This was
I spoiled this over an hour ago when I said it in the first freaking 5 minutes of the podcast.
It's on Amazon Prime. It's an hour 35. If you enjoy what we just talked about, go watch it. If you don't, go watch it anyways. Fuck you. Watch the movie. Enjoy Dean Cain. Why'd you listen this far if you didn't enjoy it?
I think even if you aren't, at least 30 years old and grew up on daytime television, you might begin to foster an appreciation for such a thing after this movie, knowing that it is at best, a 6.5 out of 10, right? Like,
that's a good place for this. Yeah,
it's charming, it's fun, it's
not doesn't embarrass
at a snappy
itself.
pace. There's surprisingly grounded marital problems. Mark Sheppard is wonderful.
For early 2000s, it really doesn't mess up with race or sexuality or for all the inappropriateness you kind of expect to be thrown in the dialogue. It's not there. It does a good job of avoiding that.
Right. Nobody gets called retarded or have, unpleasant gender slurs. It's just Mark Sheppard's really great. You might know him from Supernatural, which I haven't watched.
He plays an amazing demon in that. Yep. It's not a spoiler.
No, I mean, I'm going to come down on Supernatural real quick. I've seen like most of the first season because ages ago I was dating somebody who was into it, but that didn't go well and it kind of colored my opinion on Supernatural, so I'm not going to watch it.
I'm married someone who's into it. I was hesitant. I'm going to say give it a second shot because once you get to season 3, 4, and 5, it becomes so self-referential and actually the story and characters are a lot of fun. I was very skeptical. I know. Sam, I'm going to have her listen to this episode, and she is going to talk to you about it, and you're going to end up watching more because she's going to not let you not watch more. That's what I thought.
I will consider it if you watch Doom Patrol.
Oh, absolutely. I'll watch Doom Patrol. Sure.
Well, when you've told me the plot points of the last episodes of Doom Patrol.
So, all right. So, Doom Patrol is about...
Oh, no. Here we go.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Uh-huh.
It was the original plot for Doom, the movie. They would just have him walking around the bases on Mars doing like perimeter checks, making sure nothing bad was happening. And they scrapped it because they realized if we just have him looking around and nothing bad happens, it's not that interesting. It's just a Doom Patrol. Let's just call it Doom. We need to get the patrol out of here. Let's just have some Doom happen. So Doom Patrol. In the end, The Rock's about to cut a promo outside. And Chris Jericho interrupts him, and it just turned into WWE Raw. And everyone's like, well, that's better. Just go there.
Okay, well, I my doom and gloom about this show apparently is short-sighted because I've just discovered that while it did originally begin on the DC Universe streaming service...
What? That's a thing?
It has since been picked up by HBO Max. So...
Oh, thank God.
I guess it does have some legs under it. DC Universe streaming service, baby.
Who is their target audience? 75-year-old men?
Specifically. It is me specifically. I needed to catch up on Young Justice and Titans. Harley Quinn's really funny.
Oh, see, all right. Well, the DC animated is really good.
Yeah. Harley Quinn's on there. It's really funny. Where's my goddamn electric car, Bruce? It's good.
They're clearly not doing a good job of marketing that it exists.
I mean, they have like 8 shows total. All right, like
that's not enough for a streaming service. You gotta.
I picked it
You
up to
gotta
catch
merge.
I picked it up to catch the third season of Young Justice, and that was about it.
I wonder, you said that Doom Patrol was picked up by HBO Max. I wonder if that's going to just turn into a buyout merger kind of scenario where they just pick up all the shows.
It probably already has. There's probably an answer or Wikipedia that can answer that for you if you're curious, listener, but I don't know.
I don't know, and my encyclopedias don't come in until later in the year, so I'm just not going to.
Wow, rough.
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser's in it.
Ooh. All right, you had me.
I know you're trying to get out of here, but I need to keep pushing you on this.
No, I appreciate that. Speaking of Brendan Fraser, if you enjoyed this episode and you have any thoughts and want to review us, please go onto Apple, iTunes, podcast, whatever they call it now. Those reviews mean a lot to us. Do I Like This Podcast? You can follow us at Do I Like This Podcast on Instagram. I'm at the.ian.james on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter at Do I Like This Pod. We have the Gmail, obviously, do I like this podcast, gmail.com. And our coup d'etat is, well, nope, that's not it. Our coup de grace is do I like this podcast.com, where we have all our back episodes, all our information. You can get everything in one place. We thank you guys for listening. Brett, we thank you so much for coming back.
So you didn't want to plug anything this episode?
I learned better than to try and make plug jokes at the end of episodes because it just turns into me having to edit more stuff.
All right, fair enough. Shout outs to Kaicho. Sad about your retirement. Peace, everybody.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.